Welcome to the Great New Zealand Flower Arranging Road Trip. We're going to take you to fantastic rivers, amazing lakes, thermal activity, deep into a forest, and on the way we're going to find wonderful pieces of flora that we can use in a flower arrangement. Into the car I'm going to put a basic toolkit and some vases and just show you what you can do in any environment, including a beach, if you just have a look. We're not going to cut anything down that's illegal, but we are going to show you just the diversity that you can use in nature without going to a flower market, but also the wonder that is New Zealand. We're down on the riverbank, the Karangahake Gorge riverbank, one of the 100 scenic attractions that must be seen in New Zealand. So you're going to hear those beautiful rapids in the background, and of course, being close to a main road, the occasional truck. But let's zoom in and have a look and see what I've found so far. Nature has already supplied the inspiration for me to do a vegetative design. How easy is this? Early summer grasses, daisies. Easy as to replicate this. Also, just further downstream I found some bamboo and a New Zealand flax bush. I brought with me those pallet blocks that you saw Mike taking off a pallet, and he has put in a hole, and the hole is big enough to hold the bamboo. So I'm going to sit here and let's see how we can go. It's wonderful working in the sand on a riverbank. Oh, that's what I've got to tell you, something very funny. This is gorse. In New Zealand, gorse is a noxious weed, and therefore it is sprayed to get rid of it. It was brought over by the English settlers as something of beauty that they enjoyed from out of their gardens. In New Zealand, of course, because of our temperate and much warmer climate, it just took off and it has become a really bad weed for in our farmlands. We were in France one year and we saw this in a vase to welcome us in our bedroom, and unfortunately we thought it was just so funny, because this is how we regard gorse in New Zealand. I've brought my toolbox with me, and in it I've put test tubes and wire, just those basic things I might need on this road trip. Right, we're going to put them, these four, like that. Grab some of this flax, split a piece off it. If you haven't got New Zealand flax when you're on your riverbank, you might bring some string. And I'm going to use it to bind these four together. New Zealand flax was used in the rope industry. It is extremely fibrous and extremely strong. So I'm tying a knot on a corner. On a corner is actually makes it easier to hold it all together. And a reef knot. And I'm going to do this on each corner and cut it here. Just holding these blocks together, so when I'm ready to take this home or to the flower shop, it's a decorative mechanic. Fabulous little patch here of decorative grasses. They're all quite different, and this is what makes an arrangement look so fabulous, because even though it's going to be all upright and vegetative, look at that, just as it is. All the different forms and things make it look so good. It's like being given complete access to a flower wholesaler with about a bill at the end of it. Let's go put them into the vase. Start with my bamboo, previously cut, into the hole, and it's wobbly, it's not an issue, and I want them about this high. I cut 4 bits of bamboo. I possibly could have got away with a little less. And now the grasses, just as they come, push them into the holes as well. Not only will this help secure the bamboo, but it gives them a resting place. On your riverbank you're obviously going to find very different things, but for this part look for reeds. Look for things that are growing in the stream. I could even leave this arrangement on one of the picnic tables further up in this reserve, and if nobody took it with them it wouldn't matter, because this wood out of the pallet will dissolve in time in the rain. You can put some of these grasses in the cracks and this will tighten up the strapping around the blocks. If you're using flax as a strapping, you're never going to get it incredibly tight, but this does help it. So now that bamboo is quite upright and quite stuck in there. Grasses out of water like this, because they're ready to seed, will last for weeks. And that's why I've done it as 4 blocks, so that you've still got these holes, don't want them bent, in the centre here to add other pieces. That's this one side done. A vegetative design as designed by nature. Because this came off a pallet, there's also nail holes in these little blocks of wood, so I'm utilising those as well. Before you leave home, just drill the holes that you want in it, and then because now you know what you're going to fill them up with. And that centre hole is really good for adding lots of variety. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to add those beautiful daisies, but the daisies will need water. So in the toolbox I have got 4 little glass files, and that's what the bamboo's for. The bamboo is so I can use a cable tie, pick red ones just for a bit of colour, and cable tie the water tube. It's not quite so obvious when it's glass, on the inside to that bamboo, and then cut it off. It will just be a little accent of red. If you put the cable tie up higher, the water's not going to move it. And I'll do that 4 times, 1 on each of the bits of bamboo. So now you've got the construction method. You can pre-prepare these blocks however you want to, with as many holes as you want to in them. Push the tubes down to the bus, and I also bought some water. So some water, it's just water with some flower food in it. Alright, I'm off to go and pick some daisies. Don't worry about these being the only daisies on the riverbank, there are acres of them. And I'm going to pick them lovely and long. Do check and see if you've got the right permissions. For example, on this road trip we're not going into any natural reserves. In New Zealand we cannot cut anything from our native forests, but we can from sides of the road. Straight into the flower tubes. Because everything is growing from the same spot, it always works together. And also the same season. When you start to import flowers from the other side of the world and it's the wrong season, they sometimes just don't work together. But when they all come from the same habitat, they do. For example, if I put roses in here from a rose growers, they just wouldn't seem natural, and this arrangement is all about being natural. Keeping the flowers much, much lower than the grasses. And there it is. An arrangement made on a New Zealand riverbank. Our next stop, we are standing on top of an old Maori pā. What's a Maori pā? It was a fortification that the Maoris had on top of a hill that had a really good view around them in case of tribal attack. Obviously now it is a vantage point, and look what you can see. This is the Tauranga Inner Harbour, fantastic place, and way in the distance is Tauranga City, which you cannot see because it's just about to rain. The island is called Matakana Island. It's privately owned, and that's all forestry, and you can go there by ferry and spend the day. It is a fantastic, isolated, beautiful white beached island. Now you're looking at the river mouth, or harbour mouth I guess, and the little lone man fishing in that tiny wee boat. Out there beyond that island is one called White Island, which is volcanic. So you're now looking straight out to sea. A few tourists walking down below us. There's always tourists in this spot. A lot of people go down there for fishing, and that is a famous New Zealand Pōhutukawa tree out for Christmas. That is our Christmas tree. Further on, we're looking at another tall hill. That is a second pā. You can walk up there, and that has even more outstanding views of this incredible little peninsula. You can, if you ever visit this spot. It is called Bowen Town. And now we're coming around to the beach. This is the famous Waihi Beach. I don't know how long it is, but it is white sand, surfing, swimming, fishing, walking, luxury home style beach. But in New Zealand you have access to any beach at all. It is our right, and so that is where we're going to go to do an arrangement to see what's on the beach. But before we leave the spot, you can see down there the stunning little picnic area. That is called Anzac Cove, and it's down there that is the safest swimming that we think you can find in New Zealand, and because it's actually the harbour, and you can see it goes down very, very gently. Anzac Cove, camper vans often go down there overnight. Fabulous, fabulous. So that is a quick part of your New Zealand road trip, and one of those very private spots that only the locals know about. Fabulous little walk on a boardwalk, and we're down on Waihi Beach. Once again, this is one of the beaches to visit in the North Island of New Zealand. Fantastic for swimming in summer. I've been for my little beach combing walk to see what sort of wood I could find. Most New Zealand beaches have got much more wood on it than this. I really loved this piece. I think that is absolutely fantastic. If I was at home in the studio, I would put a metal stand right up through it and have a lovely big swishing one for the foyer, because that is an astonishingly interesting piece of wood, but a wee bit big for me to cart back in the car. So I found a much smaller piece which is really just as interesting. Fabulous. What else have I got? I brought with me this little glass container. I'm going to fill it up with sand. In the old days, sand was what they used. No floral foam. So by filling it up, you've got a really nice stable base to put the things in. And of course, it's a beach theme. And see all these fabulous holiday homes along this beach coast, and this sort of arrangement would be just perfect for in their dining rooms. If you were a florist and had a shop and a beach resort, this is the sort of thing that you'd be doing. So before I start anything else, I'm going to go and gather some plant material. You can see the sand dunes, there's plenty of it, but I have to be careful. Some of the sand dune is reserved because it is for the little dotterel bird, which is an endangered species in New Zealand. So I have to make sure what I pick is from the free areas of the beach that aren't protected. Isn't that beautiful? So this lovely little piece, I'm going to put so that hooks over here. This is the front that I've got here. I'll turn it round for you. And I bought some wire. It's quite heavy wire, and this is going to be my great big staple. What I didn't bring was the wire cutters, but that can go at a jaunty angle with this right down in as far as it will go. I'm going to have to bend that over. That will act like a little anchor, like a sea anchor. Obviously this is sand and it's going to have salt in it, but I'm still going to put water in it. This is fresh water, so that the little dandelions that I picked will last a little bit longer. So I'm going to make an asymmetrical design. Aren't they fabulous? We call these pussy willows. I know they're not. Pussy willow is a willow. Other countries call them rabbit's ears. Asymmetric design in a group, pushing it now right down into that very damp sand. When sand is damp, it can be almost as strong as concrete. And we're in a windy spot, but it is taking that curve over. Then we have spinifex. This is planted to stabilise the sand dunes, and it's the most beautiful shape. It exists out of water, and later in the summer you'll see this tumbling down the beach. It's got a lovely stalk on it, so we'll pop it in here, and that's going to hide the wire. I've got a second one that I'll put at the back here. When you're working with natural materials like this, the key is to keep it really, really simple. And now we can add these beautiful, believe it or not, dandelions. Weeds are only plants growing in the wrong place. And in this case, they're growing in their natural habitat and creating gorgeous colour. If I even turned it round the right way, you'd see the colour. The wind is a factor here. Flower arranging in the wind. That's what happens when you go out into nature. And once again, grouping these, I'm going to cut off the flowers that are dead. In a normal situation, you would have gerbras, chrysanthemums, all those sort of things. So that's giving me my asymmetrical height that way. And then I'm going to pop some of them going out this way. Don't need to have it that long though. behind where the camera is are people starting to gather. They probably think we're quite nuts. All of these designs are incredibly simple. Just the fact that it's showing what you can find that is so different in nature depending on where you are. And you can still see that piece of wire there. I have another tiny little piece. I'm going to pop that just there. Now that hides my wiring, but it also gives it some height. And as far as I'm concerned, if I had a beach house, that would be sitting on my table as absolutely and incredibly appropriate as part of our resources straight off the beach without damaging the environment. Right, we'll get it out of the wind and we'll show how it looks like it's not being thrown about. Just cutting off the dead ones. Our next stop is the Waikato region of New Zealand, and it is where all the milk comes from. If you have New Zealand butter, New Zealand skim milk, New Zealand baby products with milk, those cows are what's giving it to you. It's in a stunning part of New Zealand. It is completely dairy in the Waikato. And sitting here just outside the cows' paddocks, I'm going to show you what you can do with the grass that very soon will become hay. Many farmers actually have their cows out on the strip beside the road, outside the fence there, because it's called the Long Acre in New Zealand. It is not owned by the farmers, it's actually owned by the local councils or us as taxpayers, but it's a great source of feed for them in winter. But this time of the year it looks like this, and many of them use it to store it for hay, or a big mower will come along and mow it all down. Now what you're going to need with this design is bundles of this beautiful grass. Any grass will do. Can even be barley, oats, anything like that at all. Anything that's long and tall. And you're going to make a really nice solid bundle of it. Hello? Hello? That sort of a bundle. About that. And I have got here paper covered wire, and I'm going to bind it at the bottom. Right, so my job for the next minute or two is to collect about 10 bundles like this from the side of the road, with Mrs. Cow just checking on if I'm doing it right. Right, now I have got lots and lots of bundles here of this. That is what we need for our basic construction. Now along this paddock here, along the side here, there are the daisies that we've already found at the reserve, and there's also the little yellow dandelions that we found at the beach. But I want something else, so I'm going to keep my eye out for more. Now the construction of these, the bundles, put them like this. And this one is going to be tied to half of this one. So I'm taking half of that, and I'm taking half of this one. I'm going to tie those ones together slightly further up. Stunning day. This is the real sound that you are hearing. Some birds chirping in the background. And bundle it securely at the bottom. and then half of, that's the half of that one, see that's the half of that one, and then half of this one, and line these up and tie those two together. So we're going to end up with a zigzag. If you don't want to use paper covered wire, you can use cable ties for this. Alright, you see what's happening? So now I take my next bundle, it's a shorter one but doesn't matter, and I take half of this one and I connect it up to the remaining half of that one. Now I'm going to do this till I've completely used up all of my bundles. Trying to keep this in a lovely tidy row here. Cable ties and paper covered wire in your toolbox when you're travelling, and you can make instant arrangement for anybody for any reason. So I've done these ones with the paper covered wire, and you can see from just simply because of the colour of the grasses, it completely disappears. However, there is this option of the cable ties. The cable ties, if you're using yellow flowers hidden in it or red flowers, you can use the cable ties just as effectively. So I'm going to do it also with the cable ties just to show you how effective they can be. It's quite modern these days to how effective they can be, and also how fast they are. It's quite acceptable these days also to leave the tags on or take them off depending on how you're feeling at the time. You can get these tiny little ones very short, and it really does depend on the size of your bundle, but you can see how that lifts it. It lifts it from just being all grassy and rustic, going, oh look, there's something interesting in there. So I'll just finish these ones off with the yellow so that you can just see the difference. We're just saying how quiet it is here. We are on a side road in the Waikato, but it's just so unbelievably peaceful. If you get a chance to come to New Zealand or be in New Zealand on a side road in the Waikato, bring yourself a picnic. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, here it is, my very big, long, zigzagging pile. So I'm now going to take the first one, there's this there, and I'm going to connect it to the last one. A little difficult to see, but that's the last one and the first one. I'll cable tie those ones. Now if you have difficulty with this, once you've made this what is now a column, you can actually put a bowl inside it. And by putting the bowl inside it, you can then have it around it. It's a little difficult being on my lap. Yeah. So you can see it now completely surrounds itself in this little thing. The key is to have all of these sitting down on the ground. Now because nature always has a spiral, can you see how it's starting to spiral? That is what's going to hold it up. Just keep banging it down and we'll turn into this fabulous spiral. Pull it out. You can see the point of the spiral. It's just about the balance. Nature's finding the balance about there. Now I take my paper covered wire again and bind it at that point. And I'm going to go round several times. Now it's going to take a little bit of fiddling here to get it how I want it, but it will stand up by itself like that. The secateurs will let me. There. And pop it down like that. Now so therefore we've now got just those little bits there that are the cable ties and this lovely exuberant piece of thing. This is fabulous as it is for the middle of a table. Just this big, blousy piece of grass. But we can put some test tubes inside here so flowers will come right out the top. So you can make fabulous things just out of what's in the countryside. And I've got a black painted little flower tube. I'm going to push it down in the middle of the arrangement so that these have water, and they'll just add a touch of colour through the top. Just popping some water in. I'm glad there's a fence between me and that one. Right, so that's given us the little tube at the top there, which I can keep filling. And you see why I just did those few cable ties? It just gives us that little bit of yellow connecting it in just a few places at the bottom there. Queen Anne's lace, carrot weed, call it what you want. It is still amazing, and look at that beautiful form to go with all this other natural form that's in here. So I'm just going to add these to give it height and swish to bring it out, and it'll become a true botanical, wonderful design from nature on the farm. So I hope that's given you lots of ideas, even if you aren't close to a farm, what you can do, just even the construction method, perhaps without the wall in the background. Wow, just feast your eyes on what's around us. We're right on the edge of a native forest. Lots of people come here because there's a track just over there where people go up to see the stunning waterfalls, the Wairiri waterfalls. But we've picked the spot, so just look at what's here. Look at this astonishing moss. Now, I'm not going to pull that up and use it. Oh, what a beautiful thing that would be in the flower arrangement if I took a tiny piece home and put it in a wet part of the garden. Over here, moss covered, fallen down log. I'm hoping I can find a wee piece of that to use. You can hear the bird song. New Zealand birds, fantails, tuis. You won't be able to see them because the people talking, including myself, make them well hidden. Over here, it's a rata vine in that fabulous spiral shape. It's a vine that grows up the native trees and used to be harvested by floral artists, because imagine that in a gorgeous big floral arrangement. Reserves like this are also on farmland. It's called the Queen Elizabeth II Covenant, and farmers are allowed to take a piece of their land, fence it so that the animals can't get to it. In perpetuity, it belongs to not us as the taxpayers, but the land estate, which is the government, to just be left, not gardened, not touched in any way. So we have these reserves and retreats for our native birds. You notice I'm not talking animals because we don't have any native animals. They've all been introduced. But look at this flower arrangement on this rock. Look at that. A little piece of rotten wood, a vine. Fabulous. Just sitting here, the inspiration. And you can't smell it, which is a shame. It smells of humus. And have you noticed the forest floor? The most perfect skeletonized leaves done by nature. These I can use because, wow, they're gorgeous. Take these home, press them in a book, and you have an endless supply of naturally made skeletonized leaves for your next arrangement. And this isn't hurting the reserve at all. This would eventually be eaten by those worms and bugs. We've got to try some of those, don't we? So I've got this lovely glass tray, and I'm going to put this into it. This is my forest tribute. Trying to have some of these glorious skeletonized leaves, but also the forest floor is giving me stunning contrast of other things. Oh, every time I see one of these leaves I've got to put it in. It's just so beautiful. Wow. And these are quite dry. They will last forever. And then I've got this tiny wee pin holder that I'm going to pop in there because I feel as if this should be an Ikebana style arrangement. Incredibly simple, just so we can enjoy it. I found this beautiful piece of rotting log. Remember, that's where my pin holder is. I'm going to pop it this way. In Ikebana, everything has its place, and there's always a reason for it to be there. So I'm not quite sure about that piece yet. And then just beside me here is this dead tree. It's got the most beautiful branches on it, including this piece here. How big do I want it? Perhaps not that big. With Ikebana you trim what you don't want, but everything has to have a natural ending. So cut it on an angle and then put the angle into the pin holder, press down, and if it's balanced it will stay in place. See, it's wanting to go that way. That means this piece here has to come off. It really is cool. Arranging flowers in a forest, you just ping it off and it goes back onto the forest floor. Right, so that's beautifully balanced now, doing its own thing. If I was back in the studio I'd put a tiny bit of glue underneath there, but now I'm going to take this bit of wood and put that there, so that will hold it in place. Now all it needs, in my opinion, is a beautiful piece of fern into the holder. This is a young silver fern. The back of it will become silver. That's where New Zealand gets its fern symbol from, that's so famous with the All Blacks. The All Blacks, which are our national rugby team. So the fern is just complementing that stick going up, and then we have this one along this way, so it looks a little bit like an asymmetrical arrangement that you'd find that is more classic, but in Ikebana you just have it very, very simple. And then I'm going to take these skeletonized leaves, float them over the top. Your forests and your land will be very different to ours, obviously, but that's what you're looking for. If you're wanting a forest scene arrangement, that's what you're looking for. Look on the floor for the base, look for dead things to give you the upright, and then just the tiniest piece of greenery to fill it in, and it's done. All I do now is add some water to the base so that these ferns will stay, and one little contrast, because the design principles still hold true, So I have a contrast at the front, contrast at the back going into the pin holder, facing that way, facing that way, facing that way, facing that way. And that is the simplest little arrangement from the New Zealand forest floor in the most astonishing setting. We've moved 100 k's south into Rotorua. It is world famous, Rotorua, because of two things. One is its thermal activity. Stupid thing is it's built on top of a volcano, and the second thing is its Maori culture. It's the centre of one particular tribe's tourism efforts, and it's been going around for a long, long time. Pretty popular. Behind me is Lake Rotorua, and in the foreground you actually can see some bubbling, watering, volcanic activity. It smells revolting. Rotten eggs. And there'll be a continuous stream of tourists who are coming to have a look at this because it's free. Lots of things in Rotorua aren't, but this particular one is. Look further around and you'll say there's nothing here. All I've got to play with on a thermal piece of land is some manuka, which is a native tree. That's all that grows here. There's nothing else. But so if this situation is happening to you, look at the earth. And suddenly you'll see there's a huge variation in textures and colours. In Egypt, they've made a complete industry out of the different coloured earths. So I brought a square glass container and a little hammer. I'm going to go and collect coloured earth. Flower arranging, plant material, perhaps, but it is an idea for you. We'll see what we can come up with. So that's my yellow layer, and now I'm going to look for a black layer. And you can see I'm doing it on an angle because I want the layers to look different, because this is part of the design using the earth. I'm now going, because just over there is some fine sand, and that will give me a white layer. And now back to a yellow layer. This is sulphur, straight out of a volcano. Now this layer is actually made from the leaves of the manuka bush. So it's not dirt, it's more leaf mould. And we have the different layers. In these manuka trees, around behind them with some dead ones, and these are ideal for what I want to do. Now this arrangement is never going to be lush, simply because there's not enough lush around. So I'm going to push these, I'm going to push them in so they don't go in the edges, because I don't want to muck up what I've just done with all those different soil colours. So I'm just pushing them in the middle piece there. Another one there I can use. You see I've left a little bit of sulphur in that corner. just as a nod. Alright, now this is going to be a horizontal design, so I'm now going to find pieces that I can attach this way. Because of the size of the container, it can be quite big, so I'll cut it there. Push this right down in, and then these are my big cable ties to tie these on. They're far too big, but when that's all you've got in your toolkit, that's what you use. Another one. I'm going to build up these layers of sticks. Just in case you haven't realised, this manuka is what the bees collect the honey from, which is world famous as being the curing manuka honey. That is the manuka bush. Obviously they're not in flower, it's the wrong time of the year. As stark as this landscape is, but by taking all of the elements that are interesting within it, you end up with a really interesting arrangement that can only have been made in one place. In Rotorua, there are so many tourist accommodation places that something like this in a reception didn't smell quite so bad, let's admit it, would be so unique, like people had never seen before.
This is the end of the lake that was exploding 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that.
You are?
Yep.
And we're still here.
Yep.
Living life on the edge, literally.
We are. Alright, so that's giving me my line, and now I'm going to add another aspect of where we're sitting, but in a different way. Out of the tips of the manuka, I have got some greenery. From the toolbox, I have got some gold and black cotton. Just divide these in two, sort of equal size, doesn't really matter, and scrunch them up. Just scrunch, 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 and then take the cotton and go round and round so it holds it all in together. This is going to add a wee bit of contrast as well. Keep scrunching it down. The more you go round and round and round, the more of a ball shape you're going to get. Cut the cotton and just tie it round something. And it won't come apart. And then just keep squishing, squishing, squishing. And do the same with this one. I think it started like that. Then take a twig, split it in two, shove it up, and push it in. Cut it off where it's too long, and do the same with this one. Shove it in, and make it a wee bit higher and to one side, so it just nestles in there underneath. And there it is. What you can do when you think you have nothing in a thermal area, a volcanic wonderland called Rotorua. You can just make an arrangement out of anything, and because this top bit is not quite as interesting, having that happening with the vase really does make people go, oh wow, look at that. We have a lake to finish. We're not going to use this lake. Why? The tourist part of the lake is manicured lawn absolutely everywhere. We're wanting a lake that's just a little bit more wild. the Green Lake, Lake Okarika. They're all lakes that have been formed as part of the volcanic action around Rotorua. This is what those people are calling a beach. I've just collected it from down there at the lake edge, and it's pumice floating. It floats, but it's also really good for your skin and things. So that is what I'm going to use as my base, and I'm going to make almost a pave design with just the small things that I found around me. So I'm going to pop some water into that, and being fresh water, these lakes, no salt, so this will be fine. Pop it all through there. I found these right beside us this is native bush, and there's the bird saying hello. Are these beautiful little berries. So I'm going to make a modern pave design, taking all of these off and putting them in. I think that was a wood pigeon. Wow. Putting them in a group like this. I don't want to obliterate completely this lovely pumice. Right behind us is a cafe. I think something like this on each table would be so cool. We're sitting in the shade. It's very, very hot. One of the very first hot days of summer. And in New Zealanders, that means we head for the beach or we head for the lake. Lovely to hear those kids yelling and screaming because the water's still cold, believe you me. Whoa. Green berries, fantastic contrast. If you're using things like this out of your native area and you don't know what they are, as I don't know what this is, remember to wash your hands afterwards, it could be poisonous. Another wonderful native with beautiful hanging buds on it. These are all tiniest little flowers all ready to pop out, but I don't want it hanging. I do want this as a pave, so I'm going to use these to create another texture, but by still having the roundness, it's bringing in the roundness of these ones. So this is becoming this lovely line direction and movement right round through to there. Also found some of these beautiful berries starting to colour up, that orange. Now I'm going to just pop these oranges just every now and again, because look how that's making that pop. But just enough to give it an accent. Something else that you'll all be familiar with that's growing in the lawn, and that's the little white daisy. Make sure their stems are short as, put them in, they last a surprisingly long time. I'm doing them in European groups of 3s and 5s, and it brightens it all up. And it's making the sweetest little arrangement. But if these people went home and had this on their table, all those people swimming I'm talking about, it would remind them of the great afternoon they had in the first days of summer in New Zealand at the Blue Lakes. And that is done. I hope you've loved this part of the New Zealand road trip, and yes, we will do it again. At some stage we will take in another part of New Zealand and show you more things you can do from natural resources for your flower arrangement. Whenever you're staying with anybody, you can always grab something out of their kitchen, cupboard, and make them arrangement to say thank you.
Bye.